Robyn Miller-Brecker.
And I'm Karen Lenzer. Welcome to Seeking Center, the podcast.
Join us each week as we have the conversations and weed through the spiritual and holistic clutter for you. We'll boil it down to what you need to know now.
We're all about total wellness, which to us means building a healthy life on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. We'll talk to the trailblazers who will introduce you to the practices, products, and experiences that may be just what you need to hear about to transform your life.
If you're listening to this, it's no accident. Think of this as your seeking center and your place to seek your center. And for the best wellness and spiritual practitioners, experts, products, experiences, and inspo, visit theseekingcenter.com. Wisdom is found in the ancient books. This quote was shared with Rebecca, also known as Akashic Bec, through spirit during an intense meditation she had several years ago. She was shown the vision of an old book with ornate corners and tattered edged pages covered in dust and cobwebs. She looked up and saw an infinite library stretched out as far as the eye can see, illuminated as it trailed down. She realized that these were the Akashic Records as portrayed to her. Not long after, she was led by spirit to access her own records, and the experience was absolutely beautiful, insightful, emotional, and confirming. Since then, she's become certified in reading and being a clear channel of the Akashic Records for others so they can gain access to the priceless and life-changing information held within. I had a reading with Bec that was so life-affirming. She gave me the guidance and reassurance that I needed right now at this very moment, and I think about all of it each day since. Bec is also versed and certified in numerology, past life regression, hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral coaching, trauma-facing coaching, and is a Qigong instructor. We've had the privilege of getting to know Bec, and she has such insight on many of the areas in our lives that make us feel stuck. In this episode, we're talking about the Akashic Records, money wounds, and small ways you can shift the energy around you to get into alignment with your soul's path. Let's get going. Hi, Bec.
Hello. It's so good to be here.
We are so excited to dive in. And let's start with your journey to reading the Akashic Records and exploring all of these spiritual modalities.
I'll give you the condensed version because it's a long story. But basically, I have to go back to when I was a teenager. When I was probably around 18 or 19, I learned what the Akashic Records were. I studied Edgar Cayce. For anyone who doesn't know about him, he was called the Sleeping Prophet. And he basically would channel the Akashic Records. At the beginning, he did not know that's what he was doing, but he was channeling the Akashic Records, and he was a medical medium. He could connect with people's health, and if they needed something, if they needed surgery, he knew exactly what people needed for their own healing. And later, of course, he's more widely known for his channelings about the world and events and things like that. So I learned about him, and that's how I was introduced to what the Akashic Records were. And I thought that was so incredible, so amazing. I was thinking, oh, I wish I could do that. And
Wait, can I ask, who introduced you, and how were you even interested in anything like that?
I guess I was a weird kid or something. When I was a teenager, I got into all of the stuff that I wasn't supposed to because I grew up in the South and that stuff is frowned upon. But I guess I had a rebellious streak, and I started learning about things like tarot and numerology and astrology and all of that. And I would frequent the New Age section of a bookstore. And I was like, okay, this is my little happy place. And I've always loved to read what I thought were random books, but it turns out I was being guided to them on purpose. That's how I learned about Edgar Cayce, and then I watched some documentaries about him, and I read his biography. You should totally read his biography. It's such a beautiful book. So that's how I was introduced to what the Akashic Records were. And looking back, hindsight's always 2020. I feel like a seed was planted at that time. And then a few years later, of course, you grow up and you get a big girl job and you do all the things. And in 2009, I was 27 and I began what I now know is my spiritual awakening. And it started out as a dark night of the soul that lasted 7 years. It was
Okay, wait a second. For those listening, can you explain what Dark Night of the Soul is?
okay.
And
So it's
7 years.
7 years. Yeah, apparently I was being initiated into something. A dark night of the soul is basically, it's just a phrase just talking about a really heavy, dark time in your spiritual journey that is meant to foster soul growth. And that is very much what was happening. It was like that book or that movie, like a series of unfortunate events, is what I call it.
It also sounds like, by the way, I know you and I have talked astrology a little bit before. It feels like that was probably around your Saturn return too.
Yes. So it was initiated at my Saturn return when I was 27. That's when it began, which typically your Saturn return only lasts, like, I think a couple of years.
Correct.
But
not 7.
So I was very extra, and mine went on 5 extra years. So at the end of that 7-year period, that is when I call it the floodgates opened. I felt this very distinct shift within myself, and I just had these portals, gates, whatever you want to call it, open for me. And I started receiving all these downloads, all this information. My gifts started coming online like rapid fire. It was pretty overwhelming, but I had seen trickles of them over that 7 years try to start to happen. And I just dismissed it, as you do, as one does, and says, oh no, I'm crazy. That's what this is. And so at the end of that 7-year period, I was like, oh, because it all started making sense. Everything started clicking. I was like, okay. So I went through this really emotional time. I started channeling. I started, like I said, experiencing things I had never really full on experienced before. And so in that, that leads me to answering your question. I approached by my guides. And they told me, they were like, okay, it's time. And they say it all casual. And I'm like, time for what? Do I want to know? And they said, no, it's time for you to read the records. And I said, oh, okay. And they did. They guided me. I just had complete faith and complete trust, even though most people would be like, why did you do that?
During this, did you have others that you could talk to about what was going on?
No, I went through it all by myself at the beginning. I was terrified to tell anybody. Even my husband, like when I eventually opened up to him, he was very understanding. And because at that point, I started to understand what was happening to me. And he was very supportive, but he just didn't know what to do. He didn't get involved, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So after that, my guides came in and they truly guided me every step. I can tell you some of their names if you want to know.
Yeah, and I'd love to know how they first even appeared to you in terms of like how you knew they were your guides.
Okay, so that's a good question. So first, my first guide that came through, his name is Azra. I first heard him. It was my clairaudience, and I could also feel him, which is clairsentience. And I just felt his presence. I felt like if I was in a room by myself, like I felt like somebody else was in the room with, I could feel them. And of course, I'm thinking it's obviously some kind of spirit of some degree. And I guess that's a good thing that I had read all these new age books and all these books about mediumship, because I was like, okay, I kind of know.
You can see how it ties together. Yeah.
And so Astra stepped forward, and as I got more comfortable with his energy, he presented himself as a lion. And I was like, could you have not picked something not so intimidating? But Az was like, I'm a lion, so no. But he explained to me, he was like part of my animal totem, and we all have an animal totem signature that is inside of us. And he's my OG. He really helped me and showed me what steps to take and where to go and who to connect with and what to read. He showed me everything. And I just said, like, full on trust. I was like, yes. He just felt safe to me. Everything that he said to me, everything that he led me to was for my highest and best good. He never led me down a path that made me question or think. I truly just trusted him. And I'm glad that I did, because it led me into other things. So he led me to this lady in Canada who reads the Akashic Records, and I got certified under her. And he led me to other readers that I received readings from myself. And he helped me with business decisions. I was like, because at that time I was going in between, I was a photographer for many years and I was becoming disengaged with it. It wasn't lighting me up anymore. And now I know why. It's because you were meant to do this.
Yeah.
He truly guided me every step of the way, but they were talking to me in meditation, in dreams. They were sending me signs and symbols, which is a big part of my readings. Is I tell people, I'm like, write this down, commit this to memory, because that is your guide speaking to you. I experience it myself, even to this day. So as I got to more familiar with Azra, I learned how to read the records, which there's no right way. I'll just throw that disclaimer out there. But you do have to have such reverence for the records. It truly is a sacred place. It's a gift to us from the Creator, and you have to have reverence to go in there. But I also met with my guide of my records. So we all have a guide that kind of protects our records. I met with that guide, and he really helped me understand the records and how to read them. And I cultivated my own method, my own way, and made it my own. And that's how I've read ever since. But such a powerful, overwhelming, beautiful, emotional experience for me the first time I read my own records.
Wow. Everyone listening, you can learn to read your records. It's a matter of you trusting yourself in what you're seeing or hearing or feeling, and working with someone like you. Back, you're so versed in it and you're such a clear channel, which really helps. But how did that work that first time you did go into your own records by yourself?
Oh, man. They had told me, one of the things Azra told me was, you need to go into meditation more. Like, I had just started a meditation journey before all of this happened and was trying to connect with myself. I was in a place where after that dark night of the soul, I was trying to regulate my nervous system because it was shot at that point. And meditation really helped. And so I'm a big fan, big advocate for meditation. As I was meditating, once I got to the point where I could go into it very easily, and that's when they were like, okay, we can show you around. Let's show you the ropes and lead you down this path. And so the first time I went into my records, I was just energetically very overwhelmed because it's a lot of energy that you subject yourself to whenever you go in there. So I would say the first few times you go in your own records, you're going to be tired. You're going to want to take a nap and rest and recuperate. But I went in, and the very first time was just as you described. They showed me my book. Right off the bat, there was an owl spirit. So there is an owl spirit that is like a guardian of the records. I met with the owl spirit, and I saw it truly is a library, and I saw the steps and all of it. And I was like, okay. And it felt like home to me. Yeah. I felt like I was home. And so I just became more comfortable going, and I just did a little bit at a time. I didn't go in there and be like, I want to know everything right now, get all sassy with it. So I took my time, and I built up a rapport, and I built up a tolerance to the energy, I guess you could say, because it can be hard on your physical body at times too. So then as I learned more about myself, I was shown past lives. I was introduced to other guides. I was told things that I just needed to know, needed to hear. And that's truly how I have such a deep reverence for it, because it's literally everything.
How do you define Akashic Records?
The way I can describe it is it's like this metaphysical supercomputer of information. It is everything and everyone across all time and space. And the future is being created in every moment. That's why we can't, or at least that's the way I see it, we can't say for sure, but we have potential timelines available to us. And when people ask me future-oriented questions, I say, I can't tell you your future. I'm not a fortune teller because up to you. And I don't want to negate free will. Free will is so important in our universe. I just tell people these are timelines that are available, and it's based off of the choices that you make.
Wow. I love the way that you defined and described that. I think
Thank you.
that's really so helpful for people who may have heard the term and not totally grasped the power and the vastness of it, the enormity of it.
It is. It is very enormous.
And in that space, I also just want to point out to people, when we talk about that, within those records, we're talking about all creation, right?
Yes.
What I hope people can understand, it's not just people.
Right.
It's all things. Like
Yes.
Seeking Center has its own record.
Exactly.
But like people wouldn't think about that.
Yeah, people may think that it just has to do with us and our human lives. No, it's the Earth has records, other planets, other beings that are in our universe. They have records as well.
Yes.
The universe has records.
Wait, can I, just because you brought that up, are you able to go into something like the Earth's records, or is that not something that a reader would do?
The Earth, if Gaia gave me permission, I could.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'd love to put that. Like it's all things.
Yes. Consent is a big deal when it comes to records. I don't just read records all willy-nilly. That's why I have a conversation beforehand with my clients and I say, you understand what I'm doing and you're cool with it, right? And they're like,
It's huge. To your point, it's like consent, whether you're going into somebody's records or you're just even entering their energy. So people who receive energy healing of some sort, any of that,
Right.
any sort of reading, consent is huge.
Yes, absolutely. Because you don't know what other people have attached to them and such. And what gives me peace of mind is, even though I am like a Reiki 3 practitioner and everything, so I understand that aspect of it, but I guess I have built-in protection when I go in the records. So I'm not affected by the person that I'm reading for. And then on top of that, like I have my own spiritual hygiene practice that I implement as well.
Which is key, I'm sure.
Key. Absolutely.
Yes. Let's talk about how your readings work. Because and that's the other thing that I have found over all of these years now that I'm doing my work, which is connecting with all different modalities and all different practitioners. And everybody has their own unique way of sharing their abilities and connecting. So I'll let you talk about how you, rather than me talking about my experience, I would love to hear how your readings work.
Sure. I conduct my readings the exact same way for everybody. So there's no mystery on that. But of course, the information is very different. I start off, I do the grounding meditation. I connect to the person's energy, and then I say the opening prayer, which opens the records, and that I personally use. Like I said, there's nothing written in stone, okay? But I prefer to use that. That was the one that I was taught. And I go into people's records. I typically enter into a scene, and that scene it's a panoramic view for me. And I feel like I'm actually there, like I'm standing in it. And usually it's a nature scene. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's on Earth, and sometimes it's not. And then I'll explain to them like, what's going on. This is what I see. This is what I feel, hear, smell, experience, everything. If I'm alone, if I'm not alone. Then eventually their guides will step forward. And sometimes I will ask them questions. Sometimes I'll say, this is what I'm experiencing. Does this resonate for you? I will introduce them to their guides. I will explain how their guides are connected to them. Typically it's an ancestor guide, but not always. I have seen people's guardian angels. I have seen their animal spirit totem guides. And like I said, I could be here all day and explain. But anyways, after that, I typically ask clients to have a list of questions available, and they don't always have them, and that's okay, but eventually they do at some point. But we'll just go with the flow, and we'll go down their list of questions, and once they're satisfied with their answers, we will close out the records. And I typically encourage people to record it because it's a lot of information. I try to give as much as possible.
You really do. And just to share a little bit of my experience so that it can help someone even visualize it more clearly. What happened in my session with you is you did start out, you were taken to what felt like a past life. And you were in a room, you opened a door, and you're in a specific time frame. You knew there was like horse and buggies and it was muddy. And then an ancestor who I don't know, but you were able to give me background on how this person played a role in my life in that lifetime. You had their name. They introduced themselves as one of my guides. And then that guide really helped to answer my questions throughout our session together. I could feel that energy as you were conducting the reading. I could very much feel it. And it was so resonant. I think that's the other part of you are shown, I think, I know in my case, something that like my relationship with this guide very much tied into my relationship with others in this lifetime. I was being shown that from that guide, definitely.
Right.
And what it brought up were certain issues that I've had in this lifetime that I had in that lifetime too. And then I did have very specific questions going into the reading that I really wanted to focus upon. But I think it's interesting that you're saying sometimes you don't have to. You can maybe just set an intention overall, because I actually haven't had that experience with records. Most of the time, whenever I've done it with others, I feel like I'm very much guided to ask specific questions. But I think that sometimes can be challenging for someone who's really new to this and may not know exactly what to ask or what can get answered. Do you get people saying that to you sometimes in terms of what are things I can ask?
Yeah. And like I said, there's no limit. There's no cap on, I guess you could say, to what you can ask. I know you cannot ask about other people's records. You can only ask about your own. That's a big fat rule. That's what I call it. That's the big fat rule. Nobody can get around that. You can ask about your connections to people, and you can ask how to support someone, but you cannot ask about other people's records. I can sometimes connect with people's energies when I'm in the records, and I can personally fill them out. That's not something that the records is giving me. That's something that I'm able to do on my own. And so I can connect with their energy, and I can fill them out a little bit and say, okay, I get it. Like, I understand where they're coming from. I see what we're working with. But the kinds of questions, I would never ask a should question in the records, because the records are like, I'm never going to should you. Don't should all over yourself. But yeah, they're don't ask me what you should or should not do. Once again, it's based on free will. But I encourage people to ask things like, what is my purpose in this lifetime? And also keep in mind that you have multiple purposes in this lifetime. It's not just one. There's not one key thing that you came here to do, but you have big ones and small ones. They're all significant, but some of them may seem, in the grand scope of things, they play just a minor role. I encourage people to ask whatever is on their heart, whatever's on their mind in this moment. I encourage them to ask about we're talking about money wins today, their finances, their relationship with money, how to better themselves and heal themselves. What are some things that they could do, how they can advocate for themselves. And people can sometimes they don't like my answers, but they can sometimes ask, why am I struggling with XYZ, for example? And I'll shoot them straight. I'll be like, this is what the records say. I try to be mindful of my delivery on those things, but we keep it real. We keep it 100. When you have a reading with me, I try not to sugarcoat anything, but I try not to rip the Band-Aid off either. Yeah, we just try to come to a conclusion together. Oh gosh, but like I said, there's really just no limit on what you can ask.
But I think your guidelines are really helpful for those who are going to be considering having a reading after this podcast, really, because honestly, I love what you said about the should. Should in general is something that I know I'm trying to be really conscious of in my vocabulary, especially when you're going into a reading like this. It's more the whys and the what's that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. Yes. It's the whys and the what's and the hows.
Hows. Yeah. And the hows. And you really are able to channel some really clear guidance. And also you get, as you said earlier, like my guides, I met more than one guide, and I was able to also get signs and so forth from them to be looking out for, which I think, to your point, in your evolution to where you are now, when you started to see certain signs, I'm sure tied to certain aspects which are now of your business, let's say, that was like your validation. Like, I'm moving in that right direction. Yes. And I think that's huge. You also, I will tell you, gave me a mantra that so resonates with me, which is show me how good it can get. And
yes.
I literally now say that, I don't know how many times a day. It really helps to reset me in this place of the universe has my back. I need to allow, and it's something that actually I always have said since my Oprah days, that the universe, because she says this, the universe can dream a bigger dream than you can dream for yourself. And that's something that she would say early on. And that so reminds me of that. Show me how good it can get. It's an easy thing to remember. And energetically, there's something about it that just resets things for me. You don't even know what's possible. You don't even know, right? Like, that's
Yes.
the truth, though. We really don't. And I'm sure for you, for where you are now in doing this work as your full-time job, it's your life, and it's all becomes part of your purpose too. And I'm sure you, from maybe in that 7-year dark period, couldn't imagine that life could feel so fulfilling and meaningful.
Yes. And I mean, I had sensed fulfillment in other aspects and avenues, like with my family. Becoming a mom was a big deal for me because I struggled with infertility for several years before I had my son and things like that. And so I had a sense of it. But yes, as far as my career goes, like I loved photography and it taught me so much. And it also gave me really good experience of being an entrepreneur. So I didn't go into this blind. I was like, okay, it's not the same, but I have protocols. I have things that I know to do because I already have experience with it. But as far as career, yes, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, like I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And I love what you just said about what all those experiences have led you to creating that foundation, let's say just with work, and having that as your foundation helps you now. And that's what we're here to do, is really
Right.
evolve. So
Exactly.
And you mentioned money wounds. And this came up after I had my reading with you. We started to talk about money wounds. And can we explain what you mean by that and what we mean by that in this conversation? And then how can people start addressing it? Because the thing that came up that you said was like, look, almost everybody has a money wound that's here right now on the planet.
Yes. And even if it's not in this life, even people with a lot of money have money wounds. Our money wounds look different. It's individual to us, but we have a lot of wounds around money because we have given our power away to it for so long. And that's the key to overcoming it, is taking back your power, seeing money as not the end all be all. It's not the answer. It's a tool to help you to get from point A to point B, to help you to create what you want to create, bring certain things into fruition, and then, of course, survive, because that's just how our world is at the moment. That's just what the world that we live in. But money wounds, to me, a money wound is giving your power away to something. And there could be other types of wounds where it's the same case, right? Just giving so much of your energy and power, you're working your life away or toiling away for this idea of, oh, my ear's ringing, this idea of a better life, the idea of someday and things like that. And so because of that, and I'm not saying that those things are wrong. I'm not shaming anybody for that. I just mean having a money wound is just reclaiming your power back away from the misconception, the thing that we're all fed as a society, as a world, and using that energy to redirect away from that and allowing the blocks to be removed, the access between you and money. And also thinking that money is the big problem solver. That has been something I have had to retrain my brain with, is seeing money as the answer, the key to everything. It's no, and this might be a little corny or funny, but she's not corny or funny. She's the real deal. There's a musical artist named Toni Jones. I love her. Her music is really infused with mantra. And one of the things she says is, I am the currency. And I was like, yes.
I love that. One of my mantras that I say every morning is, I am money. I do.
I am the true currency. Yes.
But I actually love that. I actually like, I am the currency even better.
Yeah. Because I can go anywhere. I can do anything. And so retraining my mindset. And this is another reason why I started studying cognitive behavioral therapy coaching, is because it is essentially retraining your brain. But I retrained my thinking around money, and I came up, I cultivated my own mantras that I say. I watched and noticed like the subtle energy shifts that started to happen as I started to realize, and these things started to sink in around money. And yeah, it's really been a game changer.
And would you say that you think about money as energy?
Oh, absolutely. everything is energy. Yes.
Yeah.
And so you getting familiar with the energy of money has personally helped me in healing that wound and healing. And I still have ways to go. Let me just disclaimer that I don't have all this all figured out. Okay. I still live this 3D life and I have things that I still have bills to pay and such, but I have repaired so much because I realized I'm not only doing this for me, I'm doing this for my child. I'm doing this for my parents, my grandparents, because like I have generations of relatives and family who came from nothing. I grew up poor, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. You know, I'm definitely not where ideally I would want to be, but I am taking the strides to get there. And it all starts with your energy. It starts with your mindset. It starts with your belief. It starts from within. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And what you said about not giving your power away to money, to me, that is at the very core. I would say most people do. And we allow it almost to bully us. There's such a fear of not having enough money, or that's going to be what gives us freedom.
And there are people who that is real for them. That is their struggle and they need it and they do and they deserve a better life for themselves.
Absolutely. Yes.
And as our systems around us, as they constantly let us down, it's more and more apparent. And maybe people are starting to see that on some level, like money isn't going to solve all our problems. You know, we're surrounded by systems that run off of greed.
And would you say there's one thing in addition to starting to maybe use that mantra that I am currency? Is there something else that people can, that might help change their perspective even more if they almost thought about something differently on a daily basis, or were able to have certain signs where they are giving their power away? Is there something that someone can start to recognize and take their power back?
Oh, yeah. A big one, I would say, is feel stressed or defeated when it comes to money. If like money conversations stress you out really badly, that was my signal anyway. Whenever my husband and I would discuss our finances, I would just get so anxious. Like I could feel it in my body. I was like, "Rah!" And I felt so dysregulated. And he was just trying to talk to me. He was just like, we're just having a conversation. It's okay. And I'm like, no, you know, I feel attacked. And so I had to really get real with myself. And I was like, okay, so he's not the problem. It's me, you know? And of course, my husband has his own money wounds as well. And the way that we handle money is different. That's why I say it's very individualized. But one of the things that helped me was, like I said, noticing like where I felt it in my body, how it made me feel. When was I triggered? Did I feel disempowered when it came to money? Did I block my blessings? That was one of the questions I asked myself. Am I blocking my blessings? So then when I started to investigate the energy of money, I cannot remember that fella's name, but I watched a documentary and he's on YouTube. He's since passed away. I know that, but he was talking about how money is the same as water. That's what currency and all that. He was talking about viewing money as water, tying the image of water with money. And one of my personal mantras is money flows to me easily and frequently through multiple sources. I allow that energy of money to flow to me rather than blocking the stream with my negativity and my wounding. I even visualize it like moving that rock out of the way and allowing the water to flow through. That's just something that helps me.
I love that so much. Thank you. I'm going to start using that.
Please do. I literally tell anybody and everybody that will listen that mantra. It has helped me so much in my life. The money flows to me easily and frequently through multiple sources.
Thank you. That's going to be added to my mantras as well.
Yay. Okay.
You know, to your point, it's the mantra, it's the image that you're able to just give us. And then you have to feel it. Like you have to actually believe, I think, and maybe sometimes you have to say it enough to believe it. But if you can start to really believe money can flow to you easily and frequently through multiple sources and you can really see it, that's where you're going to even start to notice more of the difference.
And there's more to it. For example, a lot of people find themselves in financial hardship because they're irresponsible with money. So it's like they get it and then they blow it. They just don't know how to respect it. Just like we deserve respect, these other energies that we're working with deserve it as well. And so one of my other mantras is I honor my currency. I honor what wants to flow into my life, and I want to use it responsibly. I also find people who they really struggle with giving away all that they have. There's people which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you don't have anything for yourself, if you're always in this victimization where you're like, I give and give and I just never get anything in return, maybe investigate that money wound where do you feel like you deserve money? I ask people sometimes, I'm like, okay, if you won the lottery today, what would you do with that money? Oh, I would buy my mom a house. And they start talking about all of the charitable things that they would do, which is great and admirable. And they should. They can do whatever they want to with it. But it's what would you do for yourself? Oh, I don't know. And they truly don't know because they maybe need to heal that part of themselves, like to receive. It's okay. It is okay for you to do something for yourself, for you to say, I deserve a piece of the pie as well.
Yeah.
So it really, and I feel like it all breaks down maybe, like I said, ancestral wounds, our vision of money, like how our parents programmed us around money, because they had money wounds too, that they learned from their parents. So like really getting down to the bottom of it and healing that wound and then working your way up is what I would suggest, because we're all taught it somewhere. We're not just born being like, okay, it's cool, I got everything, because all of that goes out the window when you go out in the real world. You start working and having to provide for yourself. And some people start working in childhood.
Totally. Many people begin at an early age to have this different relationship with money than what would be beneficial.
Right.
To
absolutely
to think about money in a different way. I often think about, this is going to sound so cheesy, but I actually picture myself dancing with money all the time.
No, that's cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I think of it as my friend and or another partner that I get to create with. And I love then your visualization of thinking of that flowing to me easily and frequently. I love that. I think that's going to be a new staple for me. And really, like, the reason we're talking about this today, and the reason I know that when it came up after my reading and we were talking about it, it just, to me, it's so resonant. So many people can relate. As you said, you're like, almost everyone has one. I think that's really true. Most people I talk to, somewhere in their lives, this has been some sort of ongoing issue.
And maybe there are magical unicorn people out there who don't have one too. And I have yet to meet them. But yes, I would say, and it's such a broad statement, but I would go so far as to say almost everybody has a money wound that needs to be uncovered.
And I think, to your point, even those who have a lot of money, you can still have a money wound.
Yes, because it's never enough, right?
It's never enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's really eye-opening too.
And I will say too, really quick, around the money wound, this is actually why I love astrology and numerology. Because it also has helped me understand my relationship with money and like the energies that are at play in my personal life and in my energy signature, whatever you want to call it, in my charts that deals with money and maybe the lessons that I'm meant to learn around money in this lifetime. That has really gone a long way in helping me understand as well. So you have all these sources available. It's just like a matter of diving into them.
And just because you just brought that up, when you talk about utilizing astrology and numerology in that way, and in this case, we're talking about money, it could be in other aspects too. How can someone go about that? When you're talking about astrology, is that someone getting their birth chart reading and then asking that astrologer to focus, let's say in this case, on their relationship with money and what they came in to potentially learn? And then with numerology, is that similar? You can get a reading and find out where that plays into your life now?
Yes. So I would say if you're really wanting to do a deep dive, I can only recommend what I've done. I'm not well versed in astrology. I know enough to be dangerous, is what I tell people. I would get someone to read your birth chart. I think evolutionary astrologers can talk about past life wounding with money. They can look and see in your chart if there are certain aspects that deal with money that maybe you need to pay attention to. And then, of course, looking at their transit, seeing where you are currently, and understanding maybe what's coming up as these transits change, things like that. And then with numerology, it is the same thing. So whenever I do my numerology reports, I typically like to do them in chunks of 3-month intervals because it's a lot of information to digest. But whenever I'm going over like their life path, if they ask me, hey, could you focus on my finances or my money or my job? Or they'll ask me to focus on certain things within the context of their chart. And I will do that for them. And I will tell them, this is just what I'm seeing. And they'll be like, yes, that resonates. That makes a lot of sense. Because essentially their life path number is like their natal chart to astrology. It's like kind of one and the same, right? So you come in with this signature.
Do you do numerology readings as well?
Yes, I do.
Oh, well, everybody,
Yes,
Akashic
so
Bec does numerology too.
Yes, I do. And I absolutely love the numbers. I nerd out on numbers, is what I tell people. So I'm able to see, like, just based off of their life path number, even without looking at anything else, I can see where they prioritize their finances, that aspect of their life.
That's really powerful. I know that's another avenue I may explore. So I'm sure it's probably sparking something for others listening too.
Yeah, absolutely. These tools are very powerful and they're there for us to use.
Yeah, I
Um,
completely agree.
I heard a saying, I don't remember who said it. They said that millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And I
Stop,
was like, bro.
stop it. That's awesome. That's cool.
They do. And they do. And they'll probably never admit it,
Right. That's true. Yes.
But what do you think our ancestors did? They studied astronomy and astrology. They studied this stuff. This is how they planted their crops and everything else that they did.
You're so right. You're so right.
Right.
And I think just use numerology and astrology, for example. If you were to really explore, again, we're using money as the focus right now. Let's say you were to explore that within both astrology and numerology. And what you said, you will find you're hearing the same themes for why certain issues are coming up in this lifetime. You'll hear that in both, which to me, I know in my own spiritual journey, and what I also work with many others on is getting that information from multiple resources that don't know each other, like whether it's practitioners, right? Or it's from different modalities that are so different from one another or seemingly different. And yet hearing that same information, like you can't then discount it so quickly.
Exactly.
It's affirming. And then Akashic Records, another resource, another tool. I know for my own personal reading and what I'm currently focusing on and working on and wanting to better understand, it completely resonated with me because, first of all, I channel my own guides myself, but also I've had other readings in the past and it all lines up. And yet I need to hear, let's say from you, whatever in the way that you're saying it to me, I need to hear that now in order to help guide me forward. Because there's a reason I was guided to you, let's say. And if people could start to see things in that way, and then get that validation, they may feel much more confident moving forward. And
100%.
And also accepting where they are at the moment in this lifetime.
Yes. Because that's all we have is the present.
And actually, it's the perfect segue to talking about something that Karen brought up, which Karen couldn't be here today. And we miss you, Karen. But she recently came across this analogy of where you look at your life as a book, which we were talking about each of our soul's books, but looking at your life as a book. But in this analogy, each page of the book represents a slightly different timeline. And if you were to turn the page, that next page would be a small shift in how we do something that results in a different life. Is that something that at all resonates with you when we were talking about timelines or talking about it from an Akashic Records perspective? Is that possible? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's why I say we were talking about free will. and how the choices we make put us on the different timelines that are available to us, because that's truly what they are. But the trajectory, right? That's what I like to think of it as. But yeah, absolutely. Any and every decision that we make, you may wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm gonna eat a bowl of cereal. And then you wake up and you actually eat avocado toast. It could change the whole trajectory, because maybe the time it took to make the avocado toast puts you behind a few minutes, and then later you go meet your soulmate or whatever. It's like every choice we make really is significant, but we shouldn't stress over it. I think a lot of people might have anxiety over that. Am I eating the right thing for breakfast, or am I going to miss my soulmate? It's a matter of, it's like free will, and they have free will as well. They might make a decision that's different. That's and cross paths or not.
It was reminding me of, did you ever see the movie Sliding Doors? It's from many years ago with Gwyneth Paltrow.
I did see it, but I don't remember anything about it.
It's a much more exaggerated example of it, like maybe one different decision and how that leads in just completely different paths. And we don't even realize we're doing that all day, every day.
All the time. Yeah.
And how are we able to access our highest possible frequency? How do we pay attention to our real soul calling and whispers on a daily basis, would you say, so that we are living on that highest level of frequency that we came here to be on?
I hope you like my answer, because it's so ridiculously simple, but it's also really hard, is learning how to trust yourself. Trust is imperative on the spiritual journey, because you'll find that it all comes back to the self. Every avenue comes back to the self. And if I hadn't trusted my guides when I had my awakening and my floodgates opened and I was receiving all of this intel, what if I hadn't listened to it? What if I chose not to trust? Because really, at the end of the day, my guides are a part of me. Your guides are a part of you. You and me and everyone has access to these things. They have access to their higher self. But if you don't trust any of it, if you're constantly questioning yourself, it's like learning to trust. It is something that is earned. Respect should be given. Trust should be earned, right? If you're like constantly disrespecting yourself, if you're constantly not wanting to trust yourself, then maybe you shouldn't listen to yourself either. It's probably what people figure, I'm assuming anyway. And no, I don't have all the answers. That's just like what I see and what I experience. And I'm constantly building relationship with myself every single day, because that is the most important one. And it's hard for me to say that. I'm a Libra rising and stellium, okay, in my first house. And so I am like recovering codependent over here. And so it's been hard for me to learn how to trust myself. I was always looking for the answers outside of myself, but I still took the baby steps, still trying to undo all the damage I've done to myself and my relationship with myself every day. But what it all comes down to is trust, believing and knowing that the guidance is there. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I think there's the other thing too. It's trusting yourself and also knowing you're never alone. Everybody listening right now, you may not know the names of your guide, and you may not know, even understand that you actually have what Beck and I are calling your higher self, but you do. You have this team that's working for your highest good. They want you to be full of joy and fulfill what you came here to do. And when we talk about fulfilling what you came here to do, let's say in this lifetime, in this specific timeline, it doesn't always mean that it's always, we would love it to be easy, but it's a bumpy ride, right? Like it's the ups and the downs so that you can really have that growth. I think about what you said, that for the 7 years, you were in that dark night of the soul. And I don't know if you were really trusting yourself, but now you know.
Oh, of course not.
It's like you came to that, there was a shift for you in energy, and then you started to build the trust, to your point of what you were saying before. It's building that trust, and it takes time.
And it does. And yes, I was very much not trusting myself during that, pretty much my whole life up until that point. I was looking outside of myself for answers, when I had conditioning and programming that I needed to heal that I didn't even know I needed to heal. Yeah. And so I needed to learn how to discern and decipher and think for myself for once. And it has paid off magically, and it has helped me really learn how to center myself. That's, to me, that's another really great point, is centering yourself. That is also what brings you to your healing journey, is like finding
that podcast Seeking Center.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
I wasn't even thinking about that.
I know you weren't. Yes, but it really is, because it's part of that. It is part of that whole journey, is centering yourself and understanding even your dialogue with yourself. Listening to that inner
100%.
voice, all
Yes.
of that.
Yes. And we live in a world that has told us, no, you should look outside of yourself.
Right.
You should only listen to yourself once every 12 years.
It's giving that power away on all aspects. And we talked about giving your power away to money, but this is like giving your power away all the time in all these different areas and not trusting yourself. And what we're saying is bring it back in. Bring it and
reel it back. Yeah.
and know that all of it lies within you, and the different modalities we even talked about today. And there's so many more that we explore in Seeking Center. And there's all different places that you can be finding more about all the different modalities out there that can be resources for you, so that you can start to understand yourself better and you can start to trust yourself more. And this relationship with spirit, wouldn't you say? Are you there?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I say there's no right way. You just have to find what resonates with you and try it out. And I guess that's the beautiful part about being here on Earth, is like Earth is school.
Earth is school. I so agree. And I think the other thing, just to touch on before we end today, but like even your work, I know you're a trauma facing coach. So much of the trauma that we have is within us. And that ends up blocking us from trusting ourselves too, because that whatever experiences we may have had in the past, it's starting to become more aware of them.
Yeah. And giving yourself grace through it as well, and realizing, not identifying with your trauma and seeing it as something that happened to you, and no, it was not okay, but it happened outside of you. It may have shaped you, but don't let it have power over you. Just like the whole concept of money we were just talking about, don't let it rule you. You can have sovereignty. You can have agency and autonomy.
And you could even use the records to talk about why you had that experience, or what is that trauma here to teach you. There's ways to understand it better and not let it hold you back. So I'm hoping that everybody today really sees the resources that are available to them and the power within themselves to transform their own lives.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And I hope that too. Yes. I so greatly appreciate you saying that, because everybody has that available to them. And we really need to reach people with these ways.
Yes. I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, why we've come together, why we're now connected. And we just want to amplify this so that others can understand that they can take their power back and they can really lead these very meaningful, fulfilling lives. And the answers are all around you. It's really being able to see and hear them. Yeah.
100%.
Oh, thank you, Bec, for everything. Thank you for sharing so much.
Yeah, sure.
All about these different subjects. I think people are going to walk away with some real tangible ways to start changing their lives today, and then having the access available to find out more and begin to transform even more. So to find out more about working with, visit akashicbec.com. That's AKASHICBEC.com. You can also follow her at Akashic_Bec, and that's BEC on Instagram. And her YouTube channel is youtube.com/AkashicBec8113. Thank you so much, Bec.
Thank you, Robyn. I really enjoyed being here today, and thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.